Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 378. I kicked off with e4 and my opponent played e6, so we get the French defense. And I play the Steinitz variation. After knight c3, bishop b4 would be the win hour, knight f6 is the classical. And e5 here is a common move, and after knight fd7 you can continue with f4. Let's back up. Instead of e5, bishop g5 is the main alternative. And I was looking at this somewhat. It seems hard for white to get an advantage in this game with bishop g5 in this line. So I don't play that so often. I play e5, the Steinitz variation. So he goes knight fd7, and you continue with f4. You build up a big center here, and you hope to... that's interesting. Oh, for a second the engine was showing an advantage to black there. Don't know. Well, it's just early evaluation. Anyway, so black continues with c5, undermining the center. Knight f3 and knight c6. All is very common. Bishop e3 defending. And the exchange is actually the most popular move. The most interesting move is the immediate queen b6, setting up pressure here in a very sharp and tactical line. I've played that a few times. Just a6 is also a reasonable way to play, or the exchange here. Knight takes, and then bishop to c5. So this is one of the main ways of playing. Someone in our local chess club always plays the French defense, and he plays the bishop out to b4. Also an interesting way to play. You can see, if you look at it, it's one of the suggested moves of the chess engine. It's not here in the database, but that's a reasonable way to play too. Bishop c5, though, putting immediate pressure on the knight. And I should just play queen d2, and I almost played that automatically, and then I started to worry about what happens after queen b6. And the problem is with queen b6, he sets up this battery against my bishop, which is loose. It's sitting here, it's undefended, and even queen d2 doesn't really defend it. So I was a little bit worried about that, but it turns out, if you look at the main line, queen d2, if he were to play queen b6 here, then you have knight a4, attacking the queen and the knight. So he doesn't have time to exploit this battery. That's the main point. So the battery, it looks threatening, but it gets chased away immediately by that knight a4 move. So I was unnecessarily worried about this this queen b6 move, when I should have just gone ahead with queen d2 there and played reserved knight a4. Instead I played knight a4 in advance, so trying to defend against a threat that hasn't even happened yet. And this is a mistake, and here, we're out of the opening book here. But it's not at all obvious why it's a mistake. He went ahead and took. Let's go ahead and move forward a few moves. He exchanged. I took back with the bishop. And then he took with the knight, which is what I was expecting, just taking... getting rid of this good bishop here. And that leaves me with an okay position. What's funny is that he can take the pawn on e5, and I can even go ahead and put this move on the board. Knight takes e5. And so this is kind of a tactics puzzle. Why can't I just take that knight? See, the engine is not even listing taking the knight as one of the options here, so it's not a good move to take the knight. But it's not at all clear. It wasn't clear, at least to me, why I can't just take that knight. Wasn't this pawn defended? In fact, there's two different ways I could take it, with the bishop or the pawn. So if you want a tactics puzzle here, what's wrong with taking the knight? Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away. Well, suppose I take with the bishop. He just takes back, and then I take once again with the pawn. And now he has the tactic, which you may not have seen coming. It's queen here, check. Queen all the way to h4. There's a fork reaching all the way across the board and picking up the knight on a4. Pretty amazing. It's also very hard to spot, particularly for me, because I was worried about this move. I was worried about this queen a5 check, which threatens to win the knight, and I was planning to meet that with c3 here. Queen a5 check, pawn to c3, and that blocks the check, and then the queen is defending the knight, so that holds on to everything. And I was completely forgetting about the fact that the queen has a check on this side of the board, and also the check on this side doesn't look very threatening. Let's erase some of these arrows. The check on this side of the board doesn't look very threatening because there's all these pawns in the way, pieces and pawns. There's a pawn here and a bishop here, and so it's just funny. There's no way to deal with this threat because he can just take on e5 and clear off this fifth row here. And now I looked at bishop takes, but what if you take with the pawn? You might think, well, that's good too. But he plays queen a4 check again, and now he's not picking up the knight, but he's picking up the bishop because the bishop is already under threat from the knight. So either way, he gets a piece back. So that's a pretty exciting tactic. And I would say it's pretty hard to spot in a blitz game, even in a real game. The problem is just that the play is all on the queen side, so kind of tunnel vision sets in for both sides. They're thinking about moves over here, and it's easy to neglect a possibility like queen to h4 check with the threat along the fourth rank there. Pretty interesting tactic. Anyway, the game just continued along normal channels. He missed that opportunity. He took my knight. I took back, and then he castled, and this is all about even, maybe a slight edge to white. I've gotten pretty much what I want out of the opening, a slightly advanced position in the center, and there's a bad bishop, so this is you know, a position that white has something to play for here. Just developing my pieces, bishop d3. He goes with the queen a5 check now, putting pressure on the knight. The knight's actually defended, so I don't have to do anything immediately, but I don't want to move the king. I just retreat the knight to c3. The knight was no longer doing very much on the rim there, so might as well just retreat it. Bring it back. My opponent plays b6. I'm not sure what that's really about. Let's see. Yeah, a more effective move, it looks like, is knight b8, maybe rerouting the knight to the c6 square. Looks like an interesting plan. Queen to c5 is an idea. Okay, so b6, not the best move. I castle. He goes, let's see, was there something I could do to take advantage of? Oh, it likes b4 already. Okay, well, I don't want to give this away. He played knight c5, and now, well, if you saw the game, you saw this tactic. I guess if I tell you there's a tactic here, it's pretty easy to spot, although it took me a while to discover it. But just pawn to b4 here is a fork of the two pieces, and there's no way out. In fact, the queen only has one square it can go to. It has to go to a3. And then I can just take the knight, or I can throw in some other moves, knight b5 or bishop b5, but might as well just take the knight and be a piece up because this knight is defended. Queen takes c5. So if we count, there's two pawns against... Yeah, he has a pawn for the knight, but, well, I can just trade down to an endgame where I'm a piece up. It's pretty good. So my opponent resigned after b4, a move that caught him by surprise, and didn't want to go on playing a piece down, so that's how the game ended. So pretty interesting but short game, and an interesting tactic that we missed there in the middle. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again soon. Oh, leave any comments you have in the section below. Bye.